Hello everyone, this is Adia Malik and today we are going to do the short story The Prisoner Who Wore Glasses by Bessie Head. Please remember this is in continuation with the BS English program semester 3. The name of the course is Short Fictional Narratives and the course code is ELL202. So first of all we are going to learn something about the writer. The full name of the writer is Bessie Amelia Emery Head. She was born in 1937 and died in 1986. But more popularly she is known as Bessie Head. She was born in a South African mental hospital because her mother was admitted there. The mother was a mentally challenged person. So she was kept in a mental hospital. That is where she was born. And she was taken from her mother at birth. Obviously, she couldn't take care of the baby. So the baby was taken away and she was raised by her foster parents. So there is a lot of identity crisis as far as Bessie Head's life is concerned. For a very long time, she thought that the foster parents were her real parents. She married Howard Head in 1960, but divorced in 1964. And she used a little autobiography in her writing also. So you see a lot of racial problems being depicted in her writing, especially the problems of the African people depicted in her writing, how they were oppressed and how they were subjugated to colonialism. Um, Her mother was white and her father was African, which caused her to suffer emotionally because of her mixed racial identity. Especially in South Africa, interracial marriages were illegal at that time. So when the mother, she was white and the father was African, they had this child together. Obviously, she was targeted because of her color of the skin, because she was neither white nor black. So the black would shun her because she was not totally black, or the white would not accept her because she was not totally white. So there was a lot of problems as far as her brought up was concerned. Later in life, Bessie moved out of the country and began to write. So she moved to Botswana, which is in the north of South Africa. So she moved there and she started writing, but most of her stories, they are based on racial experiences from her past, because she had a very traumatic experience as far as the identity is concerned. She could not relate to any of the race. The white wouldn't accept her, the black wouldn't accept her. So the mixed race identity was something that was the, you can say, the highlight of her life. Now, as far as the story is concerned, so a little bit about it. The full name of the story is The Prisoner Who Wore Glasses. It was written in late 1960s. So this is a time when the racial oppression was really high in South Africa. Thousands and thousands of people were in jail because they were protesting against the laws created by the white colonials. And they had come to South Africa and they had taken over, like most colonial powers have done all over the world. It happened in India, it happened in Burma, it happened in so many other countries, especially in Africa. Most of the countries were taken up by European states and they were exploited because of that. Where was it written? It was written in Botswana, because at that time Bessie had moved to Botswana. It was published in 1973. So as far as the literary period is concerned, this deals with the post-colonial era. So when the colonialism was crumbling down. It's a short story. Where is it set? It is set in a prison camp in South Africa in 1960s. So the whole story takes place inside a prison camp, which was in South Africa. Climax is Brel blackmails Hanachi, forcing him to treat the prisoners better. So that is the climax. We are going to talk about it in detail. As far as the antagonist is concerned, the warder Hanachi is the antagonist. The protagonist is Brel, another prisoner. The point of view is the story is written in third person pronoun. So we have a more objective view coming from the outside rather than any subjective view. Okay, let's talk about the summary. A group of black South African political prisoners called Span 1 works on the prison's farm picking cabbages. So there are two types of prisoners. One are the moral offenders, legal offenders. If they have stolen something or murdered someone, or planned to murder someone, they are called the legal offenders. So they are separated. But there was another group of prisoners which are called the political prisoner. They have not done anything wrong morally, but they were there in the prison because of their political ideology. So basically the government did not like their political ideology, so they were put in prison. But they were quite upright, and there was no guilt in them because they had not done something wrong. So they were put to work and they were called to do a lot of manual work, physical work, and there was a farm within the prison and these prisoners were asked to pick cabbages. Because of their strong sense of group solidarity and lack of guilt over their political crimes, they have grown rebellious and impossible for the white guards to subdue. Because they had done nothing wrong, they were quite upright and they were rebellious, and they used to talk back and they used to ignore the rules. So the white guards, white is obviously the people who were controlling them, the white colonials, they were having a very hard time controlling them. Span 1 special status changes when a new guard or a warder arrives at the prison. So what happened was that the old guard left and the new guard came. He's also got a warder. Strict and brutal to the point of inhumanity, one of the warder, Hinatji's first acts is to severely beat a prisoner with glasses for a minor offense. So Hinatji was told to take control and show the prisoners who the boss was. So the very first thing that he did was that uh, um, just because of a little offense, he beat one of the prisoners with the glasses quite mercilessly, just to tell other people that if they do something wrong, the same is going to happen to them. In fact, he punishes the entire work group. His surveillance and authority destroys Span 1's freedom. He would not let them talk. He would not let them eat anything. He would not let them even sit together. So they were under a lot of oppression. They lived in fear and suffered under Hinachi's harsh treatment until the bespectacled means somebody who wears glasses, prisoner Brel concocts a plan to subdue the guard. So Brel is one of the very intelligent prisoners, and he was the one who was beaten up by Hinachi. So he comes up with a plan and he says, I know how to control this person. Brel had been a teacher with a very large family of 12 unruly children who fought with each other all day long. To escape his domestic turmoil, he became involved in political activism. So he was basically a teacher and educated person. However, after Hinachi's savage beating and then witnessing the suffering of his comrades, Brel determines to take a more practical approach in their power struggle with Hinachi. So they realize that they can't physically attack Hinachi, or they can't physically combat him and compete him, so they had to use their brains. So one day, Brel sees Hinachi stealing fertilizer to use on his farm. So he realized that Hinachi was not a very upright person either. So once he saw that he was stealing fertilizer from the prison storehouse, so he used that to blackmail him. He informs the authorities of Hinachi's theft, and the warder is strictly reprimanded. So he goes and he tells the authorities that Hinachi has been stealing fertilizer from your prison store. Hinachi then pleads with Brel and bribes him with tobacco. However, when Brel is seen smoking, he again betrays Hinachi by telling the authorities that the guard supplied him with the contraband tobacco. So this was the second time that he hit him. So he says, just take tobacco from me, just take some cigarettes and don't tell anybody that I am stealing fertilizer, because I need it for my family. I need to send the fertilizer to my family because they can't grow anything without me, because I have a duty here. But again, he smokes the tobacco in front of the authorities. And again, when the authorities ask, where do you get the tobacco from? And he says, Hinachi gave me. So Hinachi was again punished. Disciplined by his superiors once more, Hinachi nerve breaks completely, and he crumbles under Brel's machination. And he promises to do anything if the prisoner will stop informing on him. So he totally crumbles and he says, okay, you win. I'm not going to trouble you, and you just don't talk about me in front of my authority. So you are happy and I am happy, and we are going to accommodate one another. However, Brel surprises Hinachi by not asking for the usual contraband item. Instead, he tells the guard, it's not the tobacco we want, but you. Span 1 needs a good warder on their side so that they can endure the long incarceration ahead of them. So he said, we do not want anything from you. We just want you to be nice to us, kind to us, because it's a long prison time without any charge. There is no court, there is no trial. So we are never going to get out of here until and unless the government decides to. So it's going to be a long time, and we can spend it more congenially if you are a bit nicer to us. This forms a sort of alliance that benefits both sides materially as well as morally. Hinachi stops mistreating the prisoners and he brings them food and cigarettes. Span 1, for their part, help Hinachi by stealing supplies for his farm. Hinachi also seemed to become good by relinquishing his authority, as seen when he removes his gun and works alongside the prisoners in the cabbage field. Span 1, contrasting with their earlier rebellion, responds nobly to their better treatment, becoming known as the best work span in the camp. So there was a win-win situation. Hinachi promised that he won't be cruel to them, and they in response helped them steal supplies from the store for his farm. So there was a mutual agreement between the two. So this was done because of the intelligence of that character, Brel, because he concocted that plan. So as far as the theme is concerned, it's apartheid, racial oppression, and dehumanization. So The Prisoner Who Wore Glasses is set in South Africa, prison camp during the era when the system of apartheid was the law in the land of South Africa. Now what is apartheid? Apartheid means that the races should not mix. The white and the black should live separately. They should have separate laws, separate living compartments. And the whites were in power and they were exploiting or ruling over the black with a lot of cruelty. Instituted after World War II, apartheid mandated strict classification and separation of the races according to a hierarchy of white, colored, and black. So the superior were the white, then come colored or mixed race, and then come the black. So black was at the bottom. This brutal and racist system incited much opposition, and the South African government frequently jailed political protesters. So that is why the Span 1 was also there in the prison. The Prisoner Who Wore Glasses was published in 1973 at the height of the apartheid sway and focuses on bespectacled political prisoner named Brel, who is part of a group of black political prisoners called Span 1 that is relatively successful in resisting the prisoner's authority until a new brutal guard named Henatji is brought in specifically to subdue them. Though its portrayal of the conflict between Henatji and Span 1, the story demonstrates the way that oppressive authorities seek to use physical and psychological violence to break down and dehumanize those who are oppressed until they accept that oppression. So it's all about breaking people up and, caging them up, putting them in prison and trying to break their will. So it's all about oppression and dehumanization because the blacks were not even treated like humans. They were treated not even like humans at all. They were more treated like things or even things which do not matter. So there was a lot of oppression and the behavior was quite dehumanizing. So this is one of your theme, especially the treatment in the prison denotes that how inhuman the treatment was. Another is idealism, politics, and resisting oppression. So that is also there. That the stories about resistance, that these people, especially the group of Span 1 people, they are resisting oppression. They don't want to be there. They want the political ideology to change. They are anti-apartheid. They believe that equal rights should be given to both blacks and whites, and they should be taken into government also. The whites should not be there just in the government. The black should be taken in when they are making rules, etc. And there should not be any subjugation. There should not be any oppression. So it is done through politics. It is done through political struggle. Nelson Mandela is one of the biggest names that you must have heard. He also spent 27 years of his life in prison just because of his political ideology. So idealism is there because they are looking for a place, they are looking for a country where everybody is treated equally and there is no division between the black and white and everybody is given the rights of basic human rights are given to everyone. So that is another theme. And then the last one is the possibility of racial coexistence. Because at the end we realize that the warder and the prisoners can work together. Although they belong to different races, the warder is white and the prisoners are black, but they can come to a mutual agreement to help one another. So this can happen on a larger scale also. This can happen in societies as well. When interests are mutual, people can work together. So instead of rebelling against one another, instead of hating one another, instead of working against one another, people can work together. So the racist policies, they have to go, and the concept of apartheid should be abolished because people can work together when it comes to eliminating poverty, having family, having emotions, etc. Because on the human level, everybody is similar. There is no difference. The story seems to suggest that racial reconciliation and racial coexistence are possible and achievable. That the moral growth visible in Henatji and the reduced rebelliousness in Span 1 indicate that there is a potential path to eliminate the racist policies of apartheid and achieve a real alliance between races. And yet, the story also contains a degree of irony or discordance that suggests that such an idealistic reading is unfounded. So it also believes that, this scheme or this arrangement can only work in a prison at a small scale, but not at a large scale, because at a large scale, politics is involved and it cannot happen on a national level. So now something about the characters. There are two main characters. One is a protagonist and the other one is antagonist. The protagonist is Brel. The story's protagonist is a member of Span 1. Though a physically weak and bespectacled black prisoner, he ends up winning a limited victory over the repressive prison system. So he looks very weak and he's wearing glasses, meaning that he cannot see very clearly, but he is the only person who actually see a way out of the oppression created by this new warder. And although he has a poor eyesight, despite his poor eyesight, Brel can see more clearly than his comrades. Comrades are his fellows, and immediately sizes up Warder's energy as brutal and not human, thoroughly unlike all the submissive, easily broken Warder the Span 1 has dealt with in the past. So he very quickly realizes that this Warder Henarji, the new Warder, he is not going to break up that easily, so they need to find another way of controlling him. He's a teacher. He was married with 12 children, but his home life was turbulent because poverty and overcrowded living quarters prompted the children to violence. This chaos and mismanagement drove him into politics, where he found structure, idealism, and escape from home in attending conferences. And he also realizes that most of the problem at his home, 12 children and overcrowdedness, it is because of unequal opportunities, because the blacks were not given any health facilities. They did not know how to plan their families, so they had uncontrolled children like 12. And then there was poverty. They did not have anything to earn from. So poverty with overcrowdedness, that led to obviously a lot of violence at home. The children were very unruly. They did not have money to send them to school. He was a teacher himself, but he could not even educate his own children. So he realized that the best way to deal with this is go into politics and try to have equal rights through political forums. When he observed the guard stealing fertilizer, Brel accepts a bribe of tobacco to keep his mouth shut, but then promptly gets Henarji in trouble for the theft, and then later for handing out tobacco. Over time, Henarji guards crumbles under Brel's cunning machinations and offers to give him anything he wants. So Brel might be weak and very limited as far as eyesight is concerned, but his brain is working, and he comes up with this idea, this plan, how to control Henarji. And he saw him stealing the fertilizer, and he used that to blackmail him into changing his treatment with the prisoners. Ironically, given his nearsightedness, Brel takes a long view in forming an alliance with Henarji that will benefit Span 1 throughout the long stretch ahead of their imprisonment. So he realizes that the physical battle or physical fight with this warder is not going to take them anywhere, because he would beat them and that's it. Nothing would come out of it. So instead of physically resisting Warder, what he does is uses his brain, and he comes up with this brilliant plan of controlling energy in a way that he would actually help them. Because as I told you earlier, these political prisoners did not have a trial. They did not have any case filed against them, so they would not go to court, and there would not be any court giving them any kind of bail or, free them. So they have to live in the prison for a very long time. So they know that we have to live with the warder. So instead of just having a very bitter relationship with them, he was able to create a very normal, kind, beneficial sort of a relationship with the warder that helped him in a long run. The next character, he is the antagonist, but later on he changed. So you can say that he's a round character, because he started off as a different person, but at the end he became totally changed. So it's Warder Henarji, brought in to subdue the out-of-control inmates of Span 1. Warder Henarji is the antagonist of the story, who undergoes a profound moral transformation. Brel initially perceives Henarji as frightening, simple, primitive, brutal, and not human. And the guard bears out his judgment in his first act, that is beating Brel for challenging his authority. But then Brel catches the guard stealing 5 bags of fertilizer, and it is implied that despite his absolute authority at the prison, Henarji has vulnerabilities. So he has some weaknesses. And the weaknesses was that, as shown by his need to steal a large quantity of farm supplies. Henarji was the only person in his family who could farm, who could work on the farm, and because he was a guard here, back home nobody was able to farm, and they need supplies to farm or to use the land. And the family was just dependent on him, so he needed to support his family as well. So he started stealing the supplies from the storehouse and then sending them back to home. So Brel actually caught him doing that. He begs Brel to stop the vendetta, pleading with the prisoner that he has a wife and children to care for and is being driven to suicide. He begs helplessly, "I can give you anything you want, Completely stripped of his authority as a guard, white man, and even as an adult, Enarji is reborn as a good warder. He becomes good and human in a broadly moral sense, as shown by his greatly improved treatment of the prisoner, even putting himself on an equality with them, working alongside with them in the field. So when Brel accepts the condition that, okay, I'm not going to tell anybody about your stealing, but in exchange, you need to be nice to us. You cannot beat us and you cannot be cruel to us. You would let us talk to one another, because that is going to make this long sentence a little bit more bearable. So he says, yes, okay, if you're not going to talk about my stealing, I am going to be good with you. And he totally changed. He became a good warder. He was good to them. He was humane to them, even so that he started working alongside them in the fields as well. So it's like a 360-degree change in the character of Enarji. Now, as far as the literary device is concerned, the conflict is between man versus man. So it's black versus white. It is the prisoners versus the warder. It is between apartheid and anti-apartheid. So you can put it in either way, but it is man versus man, because nature does not believe in any kind of segregation on the basis of color. Personification has been used. Scarcely a breath of wind disturbed the stillness of the day. And 3 more examples of literary devices, especially personification. Then there are metaphors used. Metaphors are used throughout stories in order to bring abstract ideas into concrete. His eyes were the color of the sky. This is Enarji. So he had these blue eyes, which looked very inhuman, and they did not have a speck of humanity in them. And then imagery. Imagery is painting pictures with words because it's a description. They had to tell what the prison looked like. So it's a long rows of cabbage were bright green in sunlight, large white clouds drifted slowly across the deep blue sky. Very good description. Then apostrophes are there as well. Irony is there. The name Brel is ironic because it literally means one who wears glasses or spectacles. So in African, Brel actually means somebody who wears glasses. As far as diction is used, authors use diction to show the time period in which the story takes place. He used words such as, she used words as a tink instead of think, and look here instead of look here, because that is how the Africans and the comrades of that time spoke. Even now, if you listen to a South African accent, it is more like, what do you think about here? And look here instead of look here. So this is a very distinct accent that South Africans have. The author also used South African terms as Brel, Kafir, and Bas. Kafir was used for somebody of a black race in a very derogatory term. So like in America, once they used to say the black people niggers, which is now almost illegal and it is quite offensive. So in South Africa, they used to say the black people kafir, or Bas is more like boss. This word was for the white people. So these are some of the words which have been used in the story, just to tell you the time period from which this story has been taken from. So that's it. If you have any questions, please do ask, and in the comment section. Also like the video if you do, share it with your friends, and subscribe the channel also. Thank you.